This is a fictional counseling session for reflection and education. It is not a substitute for professional counseling. "Come on in," I said. She stepped into the room like she was bracing for someone to tell her she was the villain. Her shoulders were high, her hands were tight around a worn canvas lunchbox, small, navy blue, the kind a kid carries to school. The zipper pull was bent. One corner looked slightly crushed, like it had been dropped more than once. She sat down, but she didn't set the lunchbox on the floor. She kept it on her lap, both hands resting on top, like it was a living thing. "My son's," she said, noticing my eyes. I nodded. "Okay." She took a breath that shook. "I brought it because I can't stop seeing it." "Tell me your name," I said gently. "Rachel," she answered. "I'm 32, married, 2 kids." Her voice rushed. "And I yelled this week. I yelled like my mother used to yell. And I watched my son's face change in a way I can't unsee." Her eyes filled immediately, like the tears were already waiting behind her eyelids. I stayed still. "How old is your son?" "6, she whispered. "Ben, and what happened?" I asked. Rachel pressed her palms into the lunchbox, as if she could hold the story down. "I screamed at him," she said. "Not like, 'Hey, stop!' I screamed. I lost control." She swallowed and looked away, ashamed. "And then," she added, voice breaking, "he started apologizing, not for what he did, for existing." The words landed heavy in the room. I let silence hold them for a moment, because rushing past that sentence would be dishonest. "What did he say?" I asked softly. "The exact words." Rachel's face tightened like she was about to bite something hard. "He said," she whispered, "I'm sorry I'm like this." She blinked fast, trying not to cry harder. "And then he said," she continued, "I'll try to be good. I'll try to be better." "Please don't be mad at me." Her lips trembled. "He said, please." I nodded slowly. "And when he said that, what happened inside you?" Rachel's eyes darted down to the lunchbox again. "I felt sick, like I was poisoning him, like I was teaching him to hate himself." She pressed her hand to her chest. "I felt like I became my mother in one afternoon." I nodded. "Okay, tell me about the week." "Start where it begins. Give me the scenes, the small moments, the build-up." Rachel inhaled and exhaled, as if she needed permission to speak. "Monday," she began. "Monday started fine. It wasn't even dramatic. That's what scares me. Nothing big happened. It was just life. Morning rush, lunches, shoes. My daughter, Sophie, she's 3. She refused to put on socks. Ben couldn't find his homework folder. My husband, Mark, was already on his phone dealing with work messages." Her jaw tightened on her husband's name, but she didn't say anything more yet. "I tried to do the gentle parenting thing," she said quickly, like she was presenting a defense. "I do. I follow accounts. I read. I try to breathe. I try to validate feelings. I really try." I nodded. "You're trying?" "Yes," she said, voice cracking, "but I'm tired." "Tell me tired," I said. She laughed, small and bitter. "Tired like there's never a moment where someone isn't pulling on me. Tired like my brain is a browser with 40 tabs open and one of them is playing music and I can't find it." I nodded slowly. "Okay." "Monday," she continued. "Ben spilled his cereal. Not a big deal. I cleaned it. Sophie knocked over her cup. Mark asked me where his charger was. Then he asked if I could schedule a dentist appointment for him because he keeps forgetting. And my brain," she stopped. "My brain did the thing where it's like, of course I will carry that too." I watched her. "And did you say anything?" Rachel shook her head. "No." I smiled. I was like, yeah, sure. She squeezed the lunchbox zipper pull. So Monday I was already stretched. Okay, I said. Go on. Tuesday, she said. Ben's teacher sent a note. Not a bad note exactly, just a Ben had a hard time listening today. And she used that phrase, we're working on self-regulation. Rachel's face tightened. And I felt exposed. Like they could see my house through him. I nodded. That note hit shame. Yes, she whispered. Shame. And how did you respond? I asked. I responded by trying harder, she said. I was like, okay, we need to tighten things up. More routines, more structure, less sugar, earlier bedtime, more connection. I made a chart. I printed little pictures. I got stickers. She shook her head. I made it my mission. Like if I can just do parenting correctly, no one will judge me. If Ben behaves, it means I'm a good mom. I nodded slowly. So the pressure increased. Rachel's eyes filled. Yes. Wednesday, I asked. Wednesday, she said. Mark came home late. He said he had to stay because a project was on fire. But even when he's home, he's not home. He's like physically here, mentally on his phone. She stopped, then added quickly, he's a good dad. He loves them. But I'm the default parent. I'm the one who knows the shoe sizes, the snack preferences, the teacher names, the allergy form, the medicine dosage. I'm the one who remembers it all. Her voice grew sharper with each sentence. And what's it like carrying that? I asked. Rachel's eyes flashed. It makes me angry, and then I feel guilty for being angry because I love my kids. I nodded. Love doesn't erase exhaustion. Rachel's throat tightened. Thursday, she said. Ben had a meltdown because he didn't want to leave the playground. I did the gentle thing. I got down at his level. I said, I see you're sad, you're having fun. I offered choices. I breathed. I did all the steps. She laughed again, bitter. And then Sophie ran toward the parking lot, and I had to grab her. And Ben screamed louder, and my heart was pounding, and I could feel the panic rising. I nodded. The body got activated. Yeah, she whispered. And then Friday, she swallowed. Tell me Friday, I said. Rachel's hands tightened on the lunchbox. Friday, I got a call from the school. Ben had pushed a kid. Not hard, apparently, but enough that they called me. They said, we just want to let you know, we're keeping an eye on it. Her face was red now. She pressed her fingers into her eyelids. I felt like a failure. I waited. I picked him up, she said. He looked small. He was quiet in the car. I asked what happened. He said the kid took his pencil. He said he got mad. He said he didn't want to be bad. Rachel's voice broke. He said he didn't want to be bad. I nodded. And what did you say? I said, she whispered, you're not bad. You made a bad choice. She looked at me, desperate. I said the right thing. I did. I nodded. You did. Keep going. Then we got home, she continued. Mark was on a call. Sophie was screaming for snacks. The dog was barking. Ben dropped his backpack and it fell open and everything spilled. Papers, crayons, that lunchbox, all over the floor. She tapped the dented corner of the lunchbox. It hit the tile and the corner crushed a little more. And what did you feel in that moment? I asked. Rachel stared at the lunchbox like it was accusing her. I felt like my whole life spilled on the floor. I nodded. Ben started crying, she said. Not loud, quiet, like he was trying not to make me more mad. He said, I'm sorry, Mommy, I'm sorry. And Sophie was yelling, and Mark was on the phone. She swallowed hard, and I just snapped. Her eyes filled again. I yelled at Ben. I yelled his name like it was a weapon. I stayed calm. "What did you say?" Rachel's voice went tiny. I said, "What is wrong with you? Why can't you just listen? Why are you always making everything harder?" She covered her mouth immediately, as if the words themselves were toxic. "And," she added, barely audible, "I said, you're driving me crazy." The room went quiet. I took a slow breath, making sure my tone stayed gentle. "Rachel, I want you to hear something. The fact that you feel sick about those words is evidence of your heart. You care." Rachel's eyes overflowed, but I still said them. "Yes," I said softly, "and we're going to address it, but we're going to do it with truth and gentleness, not shame." Rachel cried silently, shoulders shaking. I waited until her breath slowed. Then I asked, "What did Ben do when you yelled?" Rachel swallowed. "He froze." She held her arms close to her body, demonstrating his posture. "He got really still," she whispered, like he disappeared. Then he started apologizing. He said, "I'm sorry I'm like this." And then he said he would try to be good. He kept saying, "Please." Rachel's voice cracked. "He said, 'Please don't be mad at me.'" I nodded slowly. "And that was the moment you couldn't unsee." "Yes," she whispered, "because that's what I used to do." I leaned forward a little. "Tell me." Rachel's eyes darted away, ashamed and scared. "I used to apologize for everything," she said, "for breathing too loud, for laughing, for spilling water, for asking questions. My mom—" She stopped. "Take your time," I said. Rachel stared down at the lunchbox. "My mom would explode like a volcano, and then she'd go silent for hours, sometimes days. She'd clean angrily, slam cabinets, give you that look." Rachel shuddered. "And you'd do anything to make it stop?" I nodded. "So you learned to become very small?" She nodded. "And very good." "Very good," I repeated. Rachel's face crumpled. "I swore I wouldn't do that to my kids." I nodded slowly. "And when you heard Ben apologizing like that, it felt like you broke a vow." Rachel nodded, sobbing. I let that sit. Then I said, "Rachel, we need to do two things today. One, we need to understand why your nervous system snapped. Two, we need to build a repair plan so Ben doesn't carry this moment like a scar." Rachel looked up, eyes wet. "Can I fix it?" I nodded. "You can repair it. You can repair it in a way that actually makes your relationship stronger." She blinked. "Stronger?" "Yes," I said, "because children don't need perfect parents. They need safe parents who repair. They need to see when something breaks, we come back." Rachel inhaled. "We come back." I nodded. "Exactly. And there's a simple mantra I want you to remember this week." Rachel waited. "Repair, don't repeat," I said. Rachel whispered it back, like she was holding it in her hands. "Repair, don't repeat." I nodded. "Good. Now let's map your pattern. Because right now it feels like chaos, but your brain and body are following a script." Rachel wiped her cheeks. "Start with the trigger," I said. "What was the trigger in that moment?" Rachel looked down. "The mess, the papers, the lunchbox falling, Sophie yelling, Mark on the phone." I nodded. "And the school call earlier?" Rachel nodded. "Yes." "So your system was already elevated," I said. "Now step two. The brain interprets Rachel E. in that moment. What did your brain say the mess meant about you?" Rachel's face tightened. "That I'm failing." I nodded. "Anything else?" That I can't handle my own life. That I'm not in control." I nodded slowly. "Okay, step three. Reaction. What did you do with that interpretation?" Rachel's eyes filled. "I yelled, I tried to control him with volume. Right, I said gently. And step 4, consequence. What happened next? Rachel swallowed. Ben shrank. Ben apologized. Ben got scared, and I felt disgusted with myself. I nodded. So the consequence is fear in him and shame in you. Rachel nodded, eyes down. I leaned back slightly. Now I'm going to name something important. The mess on the floor was not the real threat. The real threat was the shame story. Rachel blinked. The shame story. Yes, I said. Your brain interpreted the mess as proof that you're failing and about to be judged, and your body responded to shame like it was danger. Rachel stared. So I yelled because I felt threatened. Yes, I said softly. Not by Ben, by the feeling of failure, by the old wound. Rachel's lip trembled. Rachel, I continued, this is a phrase we use a lot here because it changes everything. She looked up. The brain interpreted, I said. Rachel blinked. The brain interpreted. Yes, I said. Your brain interpreted the moment and launched an automatic response. And because it's automatic, we can reprogram it. Rachel's eyes filled with a fragile kind of hope. Reprogram. Yes, I said. Reprogram means instead of letting the old reflex choose your response, you choose a new response on purpose. Rachel exhaled. Okay, I leaned forward. Now I want to go deeper, but gently, because your parenting moment is connected to your history. When Ben apologized for existing, it triggered a memory in you. Rachel nodded. Tears again. What memory? I asked. Rachel swallowed, then spoke quietly. Me? At 6? I spilled a cup of milk. My mom yelled. I kept saying sorry. I kept saying I'd clean it. I kept saying I was stupid. Her eyes squeezed shut. She told me I was dramatic. She told me to stop crying, or she'd give me something to cry about. Rachel's breath shook. I remember thinking, if I can just be good enough, she'll be happy. If she's happy, we're safe. I nodded. So little Rachel learned. Safety depends on being good. Rachel whispered, yes. And what did you learn about big emotions? I asked. Rachel opened her eyes, haunted. That they're dangerous, that they make people leave, that they make people explode. I nodded slowly. So your nervous system learned to fear chaos. Rachel nodded. And now, when your home feels chaotic, I said gently, your body is not just dealing with today, it's dealing with 6-year-old Rachel's fear. Rachel covered her mouth again, crying. I don't want to do that to Ben. I know, I said, and you don't have to, but you need a new script for your nervous system. Rachel wiped her face. How do I change it? In the moment I can't think. That's honest, I said. When you're activated, you lose access to the part of the brain that makes wise choices. So we build tiny steps, very small, very doable. Rachel nodded. First, I said, I want to correct something about gentle parenting. Many people think gentle means permissive. It doesn't. Rachel blinked. Gentle parenting, I continued, is not no limits. It is limits without humiliation. It is firmness with connection. It is leadership without fear. Rachel exhaled. I want that. Good, I said. Now, before we build the new script, we need to uncover the central fear. Rachel stiffened slightly. Rachel, I said gently, what are you most afraid it means if your child misbehaves? She looked away. I waited. She swallowed. That I'm not a good mom. I nodded. And underneath that, Rachel's voice dropped. That I'm like her. I nodded slowly. And underneath that, Rachel's mouth trembled. That I'm going to ruin them. There it was, I said softly. So in the moment, your brain isn't thinking, Ben spilled papers. Your brain is thinking, this is the beginning of the end. This proves I'm failing. This proves my kids won't be okay. Rachel nodded, tears running. That's a lot of weight, I said. For a lunchbox on the floor, Rachel laughed once, a broken laugh. Yeah, I looked at the lunchbox on her lap. Tell me about the lunchbox. Rachel blinked. What? The lunchbox, I said gently. Why did you bring it? Rachel stared at it, then squeezed it. Because it hit the floor when I yelled. Because it was there. And now, every time I pack it, I feel sick. She rubbed the dented corner. I keep seeing him shrink. I nodded slowly. So the lunchbox has become a symbol. Rachel looked at me, confused. A symbol, I said. Your brain takes an object and attaches a meaning to it. That lunchbox is not just a lunchbox anymore. It represents the moment you're afraid you became your mother. Rachel's eyes filled. Yes, I nodded. Okay, that symbol can work for you instead of against you, but we have to reprogram the meaning. Rachel whispered, how? We'll get there, I said. First, we need to do something very important, repair with Ben. Rachel leaned forward desperately. I tried, I told him I was sorry, but it felt like not enough. Tell me what you said, I asked. Rachel swallowed. I said, I'm sorry I yelled. Mommy was stressed. I nodded. Okay, did you say anything else? She hesitated. I said, you need to listen, though. I stayed gentle. That last part is very common. It's the adult's panic trying to regain control. Rachel's face flushed with shame. So I messed it up. No, I said. Truth, gently. You made a repair attempt, and then you added a lesson because you were scared. We can refine it. Rachel exhaled. Okay. I leaned forward. Here is what makes repair effective with a child. 3 things, and I want you to hear them carefully. Rachel nodded. Number 1, I said, you name what you did without excuses. Not to shame yourself, but to model ownership. Rachel nodded. Number 2, I continued, you name the impact on them. You show them you can see their heart. Rachel nodded again, tears. And number 3, I said, you give them a future plan. Next time I will do this instead. Children feel safe when they know there is a plan. Rachel swallowed. Okay. And one more rule, I added gently. No but. Rachel blinked. No but. Yes, I said. Because I'm sorry, but you makes the apology feel like a trick. Rachel nodded slowly. Right. Now, I said, we're going to practice your repair, like a rehearsal, because in the real moment you'll be shaky. We practice so your mouth can find the words. Rachel inhaled. Okay. I softened my tone. Imagine Ben is sitting on the couch. His shoulders are small. He's watching your face to see if you're still mad. You sit near him, not towering, near. Rachel nodded, eyes closed. You say, I coached. Ben, I yelled at you. I said hurtful words. That was not okay. Rachel whispered it, voice trembling. Then you say, I continued, when I yelled, it probably scared you and made you feel like you were bad. You are not bad. Rachel's breath broke as she repeated it. Then you say, I finished. I'm sorry, next time I feel that big anger, I will pause and breathe and speak in a calm voice. And if I mess up, I will come back and repair. Rachel repeated the words, crying silently. I waited until she opened her eyes. How does that feel? I asked. Rachel wiped her face. It feels real. It feels like I'm not blaming him. I nodded. Exactly. You are separating the child's identity from the child's behavior. That's huge. Rachel sniffed. but he still needs to listen. Yes, I said, and you will set limits, but limits come after repair, not inside it. Repair is for safety. Limits are for structure. Rachel nodded slowly. I leaned back. Now, Rachel, we also need a plan for the moment before you yell, the moment where you start to rise. Rachel swallowed, because that's the moment I lose myself. Yes, I said, so we're going to build a 10-second reset. Rachel stared. 10 seconds. Yes, I said, because when you're activated, you can't do a 30-step process. You need something tiny. Rachel nodded. I said, here is your new script. Rachel leaned forward. Step 1, I said, you notice the signal. Rachel frowned. Signal. Yes, I said. Your body tells you before your mouth does. Your chest gets tight. Your jaw clenches. Your voice speeds up. Your hands move fast. That's your signal. Rachel nodded. I feel heat. Good, I said. That's your signal. Step 2, I continued. You name it quietly to yourself. I'm activated. Rachel repeated, I'm activated. Step 3, I said. You put a hand on your chest and exhale once. Not a whole meditation. One exhale. Rachel nodded. Step 4, I said. You use a sentence. Rachel waited. You say, I continued, this is not a threat to my value. This is a child needing a limit. Rachel's eyes filled. This is not a threat to my value. Yes, I said. And then you speak to Ben in a calm voice. I'm upset, but I will talk with respect. Rachel whispered, I'm upset, but I will talk with respect. I nodded. That sentence alone can change a home. Rachel's face crumpled. I wish my mum had ever said that. I nodded softly. I know. We sat with that grief for a moment. Then I said, Rachel, I want to map the full cycle in a way you can remember because your brain likes patterns. Rachel wiped her cheeks and nodded. Here it is, I said. Trigger, chaos, mess, pressure, school note, lack of support. Interpretation. I'm failing, I'm being judged, I'm like my mother, my kids are at risk. Reaction, yelling, threats, harsh words, sometimes silent anger. Consequence, child shrinks and apologizes for existing. You collapse into shame and guilt. Then you either become permissive to make yourself feel better or you tighten control to prevent the next failure. And the cycle repeats. Rachel nodded slowly, like she was watching it play on a screen. And now, I continued, we're going to do the reset. Rachel whispered, the reset. Yes, I said. Reset means new interpretation and new response. Rachel nodded. New interpretation, I said, is this moment does not define me. A mistake does not make me my mother. I can choose a different response. Rachel repeated it quietly. New response, I said, is pause, exhale, calm voice, clear limit, and if needed, repair. Rachel nodded. I leaned forward. Now, we need to talk about Mark. Rachel stiffened. Okay, not to attack him, I said gently, to make your home a team, because you cannot be the only nervous system regulating everyone. Rachel exhaled, almost relieved. What happened with Mark in the moment? I asked. Rachel's mouth tightened. He was on his phone. He was in a work call. He heard me yelling and he came out like irritated. I asked, what did he say? Rachel looked down. Rachel, what is going on? Like I was crazy. I nodded. And how did that land? Like judgment, she said quickly. Like he was the calm one and I was the monster. I nodded slowly. And did he help with the kids? Rachel shook her head. He told Ben to go to his room. Then he told me I need to calm down. Then he went back to his call. Rachel's face twisted. And then later he said, You know I don't like yelling, like I don't know that. I nodded. So you felt alone? Rachel's eyes filled. Yes. I leaned back. Rachel, one of the most damaging things in parenting is when one parent becomes the bad cop and the other parent becomes the judge. Rachel stared. Because, I said, it isolates you and it teaches the child that one parent is safe and the other is not. That's not what you want. You want a united, safe front. Rachel nodded slowly. How do I get that? You invite Mark into a plan, I said. Not a complaint, a plan. Rachel swallowed. Okay. Here's a script, I said. You say, Mark, I need us to be a team. When I'm getting activated, I need you to step in with support, not judgment. I'm working on a reset. Can we agree on a cue word, like pause, so we can tag each other out? Rachel blinked. Tag each other out. Yes, I said, because you're not supposed to do this alone. If you're on the edge, he can step in. If he's on the edge, you step in. That's partnership. Rachel exhaled. He might say I'm overreacting. I nodded. Then you keep it practical. This isn't about blame. This is about our kids. Ben apologized for existing. I want to stop that pattern now. Rachel's eyes filled again at the memory. Most decent fathers, I said gently, will respond to that. Rachel nodded. I took a slow breath. We should also talk about something else. The way you treat yourself. Rachel frowned. What do you mean? When you yelled, I said. What did you say to yourself afterward? Rachel's voice went harsh. That I'm a terrible mom, that I'm broken, that I shouldn't have had kids, that they deserve better. I nodded slowly. That's your inner mother talking. Rachel froze. I said gently, the same voice that used to shame you is now living inside you, and it pushes you toward extremes, harshness or collapse. Rachel covered her mouth, eyes wide. And if you want to change what your kids experience, I said softly, you also have to change what you experience inside. Rachel whispered, how? Truth, gently, I said. With yourself too. Rachel sniffed. I don't know how. We start small, I said. After a mistake, you will say this sentence, I am a good mother learning new skills. Rachel blinked. Say it, I prompted. Rachel hesitated, then whispered, I am a good mother learning new skills. Again, I said. Rachel repeated it, a little stronger. I nodded. That sentence doesn't erase accountability. It prevents shame from hijacking you, Rachel swallowed. Because shame says, I continued, you are bad. And when you believe I am bad, you either punish yourself or you punish others. But responsibility says, I did something wrong and I can repair it. Rachel nodded slowly. I leaned forward. Now, I want to make sure we keep this grounded. Tell me, what did Ben do after the incident? That evening? Rachel's eyes darted down. He was overly nice. Describe overly nice, I said gently. He offered to help clean, she whispered. He kept asking if I needed anything. He tried to make Sophie laugh. He was performing. Rachel's eyes filled. He was trying to keep the peace. I nodded slowly. That's a child in survival mode. Rachel's face crumpled. I did that. Yes, I said softly, and you can stop the cycle. Rachel wiped her face. How do I make him feel safe again? Repair, I said, and repetition, consistent calm, and a clear message that his emotions are not dangerous. Rachel nodded. And, I added, you can also do something powerful. You can teach him the difference between behavior and identity. Rachel leaned forward. You can say, I continued, you are not bad, you are learning, even grown-ups are learning. Rachel whispered it as if she was writing it on her heart. And you can teach him a repair script too, I added. Children can learn to repair. Not because they're guilty, but because repair is life, Rachel blinked. Teach him to repair. Yes, I said. For example, if he pushes, you can guide, that hurt, we don't push. Let's repair. We say sorry, we check if they're okay, we try again. Rachel nodded slowly. I paused, then said, let's do another recap, because your brain needs to hold the storyline. Rachel nodded, attentive. Here's where we are, I said. This week, the trigger was stress and chaos layered with shame from the school note and lack of support. Your brain interpreted your child's behavior as a threat to your identity. I'm failing. I'm like my mother. Your reaction was yelling to regain control. The consequence was Ben shrinking and apologizing for existing, and you falling into shame. The root is your childhood. Love felt conditional, emotions felt dangerous, and safety depended on being good. Now we're reprogramming. 10-second reset, calm voice limit, repair without but, and partnership with Mark. And we're using the mantra, repair, don't repeat. Rachel nodded. Tears still there, but her face looked clearer, like she could see the map. I pointed gently at the lunchbox. Now, I want to change the meaning of this symbol. Rachel looked down at it. Right now, I said, this lunchbox represents failure. It represents the moment you're afraid you became your mother. Rachel nodded, swallowing. But we're going to make it represent something else, I said. We're going to make it represent repair. Rachel blinked. How? She whispered. Because every morning you touch it, I said. You pack it, you zip it, you put it in his bag. It can become your reminder. Today I will repair, not repeat. Rachel's eyes filled again. That's beautiful. And practical, I said. A daily cue. Every time you see the dent, you don't spiral into shame. You say, that was a moment. We repaired. We are learning. Rachel nodded slowly. I asked, can I ask you a blunt question? Rachel swallowed. Yes. In the moment you yelled, I said, what did you need that you didn't have? Rachel blinked, confused. I clarified gently, not what Ben needed, what you needed. Rachel stared at me as if no one had ever asked her that. I needed help, she whispered. I nodded. Yes? I needed Mark to take Sophie, she said. I needed someone to say, I've got it. I needed a break. I nodded slowly. So part of your reprogramming is not only in-the-moment breathing, it's building a life with more margin. Rachel's eyes widened. Margin. Yes, I said, because if you are constantly at a 9, you will snap. Even a gentle parent snaps when the system is overloaded, Rachel nodded. So we're going to talk about 2 levels, I continued. Micro level, what you do in 10 seconds when you're activated. Macro level, what you do across the week so you're not constantly activated. Rachel exhaled. Okay. What does your week look like? I asked. Support, sleep, meals. Time alone. Rachel laughed, bitter. Time alone, I nodded. I know. Rachel sighed. I sleep like 5 hours. Sophie wakes up. Mark snores. I do all the morning stuff. I work part-time. I do most of the house stuff. And my time alone is like scrolling on my phone at midnight. I nodded slowly. So you're depleted? Rachel nodded. And then I feel guilty for being depleted because I chose to have kids. I shook my head gently. Choosing kids doesn't mean choosing burnout. Rachel's face softened slightly. Rachel, I said, what would be one tiny way to add margin this week? She hesitated. I don't know. Something small, I said. not a fantasy vacation, a small step. Rachel thought. Mark could do bedtime one night. I nodded. That's concrete, Rachel sighed, but he'll say he's tired. Then you say, I offered, I'm tired too, and our kids need us. Can you take Tuesday bedtime so I can reset? Rachel blinked. And if he doesn't, I continued, we talk about the bigger issue, but we start with a request. Rachel nodded slowly. I leaned forward. Now, I want to do a role play, not with Ben, with Mark. Rachel stiffened. Okay. Because, I said, if you approach Mark from shame, you'll either attack or collapse. If you approach Mark from truth and partnership, you have a better chance. Rachel nodded, nervous. Pretend I'm Mark, I said. Start. Rachel swallowed and looked down at her hands, then up. Mark, she began softly, I need to talk about what happened. I nodded, playing along. Okay. Rachel's voice wavered. When I yelled at Ben, he started apologizing for existing. That scared me. I'm working on changing my reactions. But I can't do it alone. I need you to support me in the moment, not judge me. She looked at me, eyes pleading. I answered as Mark, slightly defensive. Rachel, I didn't judge you. I just don't like yelling. Rachel's jaw tightened. The old reaction rose, proof, argument. I lifted my hand. Pause. Rachel froze. This is where we reprogram, I said gently. The old you would interpret his comment as, I'm a bad mom, and then either defend or collapse. The new you stays anchored. Rachel nodded, breath shaky. Try this, I coached. You say, I understand you don't like yelling, I don't either. That's why I'm asking for teamwork. Can we agree on a cue word and a tag-out plan? Rachel repeated it, voice steadier. I understand you don't like yelling. I don't either. That's why I'm asking for teamwork. Can we agree on a cue word and a tag-out plan? I nodded. Good, I answered as Mark, still hesitant. What do you mean, tag out? Rachel looked at me. I said, now you explain it simple. If I'm getting activated, you take Sophie for 5 minutes. If you're getting activated, I take them. We protect each other so we don't spill our stress on the kids. Rachel repeated it. I nodded. Excellent. Rachel exhaled. That feels doable. It is, I said. It's practical. Rachel wiped her cheeks again. But what if Mark still doesn't help? I nodded slowly. Then we address that. But we don't assume refusal before we request clearly. Rachel nodded. I leaned back. Okay, now, I want to go back to Ben, because there is a moment in your story that matters deeply. Rachel looked up. When Ben said, I'm sorry I'm like this, I said softly, your brain interpreted something too. Rachel blinked. What did your brain interpret? I asked. Rachel's voice broke. That I ruined him. I nodded. And then your body likely did what? Rachel swallowed. I wanted to cry. I wanted to hug him. I wanted to disappear. I nodded. So in that moment, you were at risk of another pattern. Overcompensating. Rachel frowned. Overcompensating. Yes, I said. Some parents respond to guilt by becoming permissive. They stop holding limits because they're afraid to hurt the child again. That creates a new problem. Rachel nodded slowly. I did that. Tell me, I said. Rachel sighed. After I yelled, I let him watch TV longer. I gave him cookies. I was like, it's okay, it's okay. I didn't want him upset. I nodded. So guilt pulled you towards softness without structure. Rachel nodded, ashamed. Truth, gently, I said. It makes sense. But we're going to reprogram that too. Repair is not bribery. Repair is safety and responsibility together. Rachel looked at me. Repair says, I continued. I did wrong, I'm sorry, I'll do different. And then limit says, and we still do the right thing. Rachel nodded. Now, I said, I'm going to give you a simple framework for limits that keeps gentleness and firmness together. Rachel leaned forward. It's 3 lines, I said. You can memorize them. Rachel nodded. Line 1, I said, is validation. I see you're upset. Rachel repeated it. Line 2, I continued, is boundary. We're not doing that. Rachel nodded. Line 3, I said, is support. I will help you. Rachel's face softened. I will help you. Yes, I said. So for example, I see you're upset. You want the playground. We're leaving now. I will help you by holding your hand and breathing with you. Rachel nodded. And if you feel yourself rising, I added, you do the 10-second reset. Rachel whispered, hand on chest, exhale. Not a threat to my value. Calm voice. Exactly, I said. Rachel exhaled. I can try. You can, I said, and you won't do it perfectly, but you will repair quickly. Repair, don't repeat. Rachel repeated. Repair, don't repeat. I nodded. Good. Now I wanted to build the 7-day plan with enough detail that it felt real and also created natural retention beats. Rachel, I said, I'm going to give you a 7-day plan, but first I need one more detail. Rachel looked up. What was Ben doing right before the lunchbox spilled? I asked. Not the whole day. That exact moment, Rachel blinked, thinking he was trying to take off his shoes. He was tired. He was frustrated because the straps on his backpack were stuck. He was trying to do it himself. I nodded. So he wasn't trying to make your life harder. Rachel's face twisted. No, he was trying, I said softly. Rachel whispered, he was trying. And your brain interpreted his struggle as defiance, I said. Rachel's eyes widened. Yes, I nodded. That is a key reprogram point. Sometimes what looks like defiance is actually dysregulation. Rachel nodded slowly. Now, I said, the 7-day plan will include a moment where you practice seeing effort instead of threat. Rachel swallowed. Okay, I leaned forward. Here's day 1. Rachel listened. Day 1, I said, you repair with Ben using the 3-part repair. Name what you did, name the impact, name your plan. And then you offer a reconnection moment. 20 seconds of a hug if he wants it, or sitting together if he doesn't want touch. Rachel nodded. And you do not add a lesson, I added. No, but you need to listen. The lesson comes later. Rachel nodded again. Day 2, I said, you introduce the Q word in the house. Pause. You tell Ben, sometimes mommy's voice gets too loud. When that happens, I'm going to say pause and take a breath. This helps him feel safe because he knows you are aware. Rachel blinked. Tell him I'm going to pause. Yes, I said. It models self-control. It makes him less responsible for your emotions. Rachel nodded. Day 3, I said, you create a 10-minute transition after school. No correction, no questions about behavior first. Just snack and presence. You sit on the floor. You look at him. You ask, what was hard today? What was fun today? That reduces the likelihood of after-school blow-ups. Rachel nodded slowly. Day 4, I said, you set one clear limit with one predictable consequence. Something small, like, when we come home, backpacks go on the hook. If it's thrown on the floor, we practice again. Not punishment. Practice. Rachel blinked. Practice again. Yes, I said, because you're training skills, not shaming. Rachel nodded. Day 5, I said, you practice naming emotions once a day. Not all day. Once. You say, you look frustrated, or you're disappointed. This teaches him language so he doesn't use his body to communicate. Rachel nodded. Day 6, I said. You do a 2-minute review with Ben at bedtime. 2 minutes. You ask, what was one good moment today? What was one hard moment? Did we repair anything? Rachel's eyes softened. Did we repair anything? Yes, I said, because repair becomes normal. Day 7, I said. You place a small note in the lunchbox. Rachel looked down at the lunchbox. You write, I continued. I'm proud of you. I'm learning too. We repair and we come back. Rachel's eyes filled immediately. Oh my gosh, I nodded. And every time you see the lunchbox, you remember the new meaning. Rachel sniffed. Repair, don't repeat. Yes, I said softly. Repair, don't repeat. We sat for a moment. Then Rachel asked, a voice small, but what if I yell again? I nodded. You probably will at some point. Not because you want to, but because you are human and you are rewiring. Rachel's face tightened with fear. And that's why, I continued gently, repair is not a one-time event. Repair is a lifestyle. The goal is not never making a mistake. The goal is making fewer mistakes and repairing quickly when you do. Rachel's eyes filled. Okay. I leaned forward. Rachel, I want to go deeper for a moment, because if we don't address the root, you'll be fighting symptoms forever. Rachel swallowed. Okay. I softened my tone. When you were little and your mother exploded, what did you learn you had to do to survive? Rachel stared at the lunchbox, voice barely audible. Be perfect. I nodded slowly. And what happens inside you now when your child is not perfect? Rachel's jaw clenched. I panic. Because imperfection feels like danger, I said. Rachel nodded. Tears. I said, so you're not just parenting Ben. You're also trying to protect little Rachel. Rachel's face crumpled. Yes. And little Rachel, I continued gently, needs to hear something too. Rachel looked up, startled. Can you do a small exercise with me? I asked. Rachel hesitated, then nodded. I said softly, imagine 6-year-old Rachel is here. The spilled milk, the yelling, the shame. She's apologizing for existing. What do you want to say to her? Rachel's lips trembled violently. She shook her head like she couldn't. I stayed gentle. Truth, gently. You can whisper it. Rachel swallowed, then whispered, you're not bad. I nodded. Keep going. Rachel closed her eyes. You're just a kid. I nodded. Yes. Rachel's voice broke. You shouldn't have to earn love. Tears slid down her cheeks. I nodded slowly. That's true. Rachel covered her face. I don't know how to believe that, I said softly. You don't have to believe it all at once. You just have to practice saying it, because the brain can be reprogrammed through repetition. Rachel sniffed. And when you say it to little Rachel, I continued, you become more able to say it to Ben. Rachel nodded, shaking. I leaned back. Now, I want to check another open loop. You mentioned that Mark said, you're dramatic. Did your mother ever call you dramatic? Rachel froze. Yes, she whispered. I nodded. So when Mark uses that language, it hits an old nerve. Rachel nodded, angry tears now. It makes me feel like I'm crazy. I nodded. So we also need a boundary in your marriage. Not an aggressive one, a respectful one. Rachel looked up. You can say, I offered, Mark, when you call me dramatic, it shuts me down. I need you to speak to me with respect. We can disagree, but we don't label. Rachel blinked. And, I added, if he wants to help, he can ask. What do you need right now? Rachel nodded slowly. That would help. I said, marriage and parenting are connected. When a couple is disconnected, the kids feel it. Rachel swallowed. I leaned forward again. Rachel, what is the deepest fear you have about yourself? She looked away. I waited. She whispered, that there's something wrong with me. I nodded slowly. That's the core shame. Rachel's eyes filled. And I want to confront it gently, I said. There is not something wrong with you. There is something that happened to you. Rachel's breath hitched. And what happened to you, I continued, trained your nervous system to fear chaos and to equate mistakes with danger. Rachel nodded, crying. But now, I said softly, you are in a new generation. You have the power to change the pattern. Rachel whispered, I want to. I believe you, I said. Now I shifted into another retention beat, a concrete scene reenactment with alternate outcome, so her brain could see the future. Rachel, I said, I want to rerun the Friday scene, but with the new script. Rachel blinked. Okay. Imagine you walk in, I said. You're carrying the school shame. You're depleted. Ben's backpack strap is stuck. Sophie is yelling. The lunchbox drops and spills. Rachel's shoulders tightened just imagining it. Now, I continued, your body starts to heat. That's your signal. You do the 10-second reset. Rachel whispered, hand on chest. Yes, I said. You exhale once. You tell yourself, this is not a threat to my value. Rachel nodded. Then you speak, I continued. Your voice is lower. You say, Ben, I see you're frustrated. We're going to clean this up together. First, shoes off, then papers. I will help you. Rachel's eyes filled. Now, I said. Ben starts to cry quietly. He says, I'm sorry. Rachel's breath shook. And you respond, I continued, with identity truth. You are not bad. Accidents happen. We fix accidents. Come here. Rachel nodded, tears streaming. And if you still snap, I added gently, you repair quickly. I yelled, that scared you, I'm sorry. Next time I will pause, and then you still hold the limit. We clean together, then snack. Rachel exhaled. That sounds possible. It is possible, I said, not instantly, but through practice. Rachel swallowed. Practice. Yes, I said. Reprogramming is repetition. Not inspiration, Rachel nodded. I paused, then asked, Rachel, how did Ben sleep after the incident? Rachel blinked. He woke up once. What did he say? I asked softly. Rachel's eyes filled again. He came into our room and asked if I was still mad. I felt the ache in my chest. What did you say? I asked. I said no, she whispered. I said I love him. But he didn't look convinced. I nodded. Because safety isn't only words, it's consistency. Rachel nodded, guilt washing over her. Truth, gently, I reminded. You're not doomed. You're learning. Rachel wiped her face. Now I shifted into something that often becomes the central insight, the difference between control and leadership. Rachel, I said, you mentioned you made charts and stickers and routines to prove you're a good mom. Rachel nodded, embarrassed. I want to name something, I said. There's a difference between structure and control. Rachel blinked. Structure serves the child, I said. Control serves your anxiety. Rachel's eyes widened. And the brain, I continued, often tries to calm anxiety by controlling the environment. But children are not environments. They're people. Rachel nodded slowly. So my chart was anxiety. Not all of it, I said gently. Some structure is good, but if the emotion under the structure is fear of judgment, then the structure becomes brittle, and brittle things snap. Rachel swallowed. That's me, I nodded. So part of your reprogramming is shifting from I must control to be safe to I can lead with calm firmness. Rachel whispered, lead. Yes, I said. Leadership is calm, control is frantic. Rachel nodded slowly. I asked, when you think of your mother, what did she do when she was overwhelmed? Rachel's face tightened. She exploded or went silent. I nodded. So your nervous system learned those are the only options. Rachel nodded. But you have a third option now, I said. Pause and repair. That's the new path. Rachel exhaled. Okay. I leaned forward. Now, I want to help you with one more tool. A phrase to say when you feel the urge to humiliate. Rachel blinked. Humiliate. Yes, I said gently. When a parent says, what is wrong with you? It's not just correction, it's identity attack. Most parents don't mean to do it. They're activated. But we want to stop that phrase from coming out. Rachel nodded, ashamed. So, I continued, your replacement phrase is, what do you need right now? Rachel blinked. Because it redirects your brain from judgment to curiosity, I said. Rachel whispered, what do you need right now? Yes, I said. To Ben, it might mean, do you need help? Do you need a break? Do you need a hug? Do you need a firm boundary? Rachel nodded. And to yourself, I added, it might mean, I need help. I need silence. I need Mark to tag in. I need water. I need to sit for 1 minute. Rachel's eyes filled. I never ask what I need. I nodded. That's part of the old pattern. You were taught your needs are inconvenient. Rachel swallowed. Yeah. I leaned back. Okay, another recap. Because we're about 20 minutes into this in terms of emotional content, and your mind needs an anchor. Rachel nodded. Rachel, I said, you are not here because you are a bad mother. You are here because you are a mother with a triggered nervous system and an old wound. This week, the trigger was overload. Your brain interpreted the child's behavior as proof of your failure and threat of judgment. You reacted with yelling to regain control. The consequence was your child shrinking and apologizing for existing. The root is your childhood. Safety depended on being good and emotions felt dangerous. The reset is 10-second pause, new inner sentence, calm, firm limit, and repair without but. The symbol, the lunchbox, becomes your daily reminder. Repair, don't repeat. Rachel repeated softly. Repair, don't repeat. I nodded. Good. Now, Rachel's face shifted, like another fear was rising. But what if, she said, voice trembling, Ben is already damaged? I leaned forward. Rachel, hear me. Rachel stared. One moment does not define a child, I said. A pattern defines a child. Rachel blinked. And you are interrupting the pattern, I continued. That matters more than the moment. Rachel exhaled, trembling. Okay. And, I added gently, there is something powerful about a parent who says, I was wrong. Rachel's eyes filled. Because, I continued, it teaches the child, when someone hurts you, they can come back. Relationships can heal. That is a life skill. Rachel nodded, hope flickering. Now, I said, I want you to understand something about Ben's apology. When a child apologizes for existing, it's usually because they've learned that love feels conditional. Rachel's face crumpled. And I taught him that. You taught him it for a moment, I corrected gently. Now you teach him the opposite through repair and consistency. Rachel nodded, wiping her face. I asked, have you talked to Ben's teacher since the call? Rachel shook her head. I'm embarrassed, I nodded. Shame wants you to hide. Rachel nodded. But, I continued, a confident mother doesn't hide. A A confident mother partners. Rachel blinked. So, I said, you can send a simple message. Thank you for letting me know. We're working on regulation and repair at home. If you notice triggers, please tell me so we can support him. That turns shame into teamwork. Rachel nodded slowly. I can do that. Good, I said. Now I shifted into another role play, this time a short one with Ben's apology, because it's the core emotional moment and needs a new ending. Rachel, I said, pretend I'm Ben. I just spilled the lunchbox. You yelled, I froze. I look up with big eyes and say, I'm sorry I'm like this. What do you say now with the new script? Rachel's breath shook. She closed her eyes for a second. Then she spoke, softly. Ben, you're not like this. You're a good kid who was tired. I yelled, and that was wrong. I'm sorry. You don't have to be perfect for me to love you. Her voice broke. I nodded slowly. That sentence, you don't have to be perfect for me to love you, that is generational healing, Rachel cried quietly. I let her. Then I said, gently, do you believe it? Rachel shook her head, crying. I want to. Good, I said. Wanting is the beginning, and you will practice believing it by speaking it. Rachel nodded. Now I shifted into the final third of the session. Integrate faith explicitly but gently. Keep it practical. End with verse and prayer. Rachel, I said, I want to name something you may already sense. There is a spiritual dimension to what you're fighting. Rachel looked up. I'm not talking about blaming demons for everything, I said gently. I'm talking about the way darkness works in families. It often works through shame and repetition. Rachel's eyes filled. The enemy of your home, I continued, would love for you to believe one of two lies. Either I'm fine, it's not a big deal, I don't need to change, or I'm terrible, I'm hopeless, and my kids are doomed. Rachel swallowed hard. Both lies keep you stuck, I said softly. But the truth is, you are responsible, you are capable of change, and you are not alone. Rachel nodded, trembling. And the way you fight this, I continued, is not by trying harder in panic. It's by practicing calm truth and repair. Rachel whispered, repair, don't repeat. Yes, I said, that's not just a parenting mantra. That's spiritual warfare in a kitchen. Rachel's face softened with a small, stunned smile. I nodded. Now, before you leave, I want to give you a simple plan to carry into your next hard moment. I want it to be so simple you can remember it when you're activated. Rachel nodded. It's 4 words, I said. Rachel waited. Pause, lower, limit, repair, I said. Rachel blinked. Pause, lower. Limit, repair. Yes, I said, pause. Hand on chest, 1 exhale. Lower, lower your voice. Limit, clear boundary. Repair. If you mess up, you repair quickly. Rachel nodded slowly. I can remember that. And, I added, every morning when you pack the lunchbox, you whisper, repair, don't repeat. Rachel looked down at the lunchbox and nodded. Now I said, Rachel, tell me what you want your kids to remember about your home. Rachel's eyes filled, but her voice was clearer. That it's safe, I nodded. And what does safe mean? Rachel swallowed. That they can have feelings, that they can make mistakes, that they can tell the truth, that we come back. I nodded. Yes. We come back, she whispered. I leaned forward. And now we end with the most practical part, the exact 7-day assignment. I'm going to say it one more time, and then I want you to repeat it back, so it's yours. Rachel nodded. Day 1, repair with Ben, no but. Day 2, introduce cue word, pause. Day 3, 10-minute after school transition with snack and presents. Day 4, One clear limit and practice again consequence. Day 5, name an emotion once a day. Day 6, 2-minute bedtime review with, did we repair anything? Day 7, note in the lunchbox that says, I'm proud of you, I'm learning too. We repair and we come back. Rachel repeated it, stumbling once, then getting it right. Her voice steadied as she spoke, like the plan itself was giving her spine. I nodded. Good. She took a long breath and asked, quietly, do you think Ben will forgive me? I looked at her steadily. Children are incredibly forgiving when they feel safe, and you're going to show him safety not by begging for forgiveness, but by changing the pattern. Rachel nodded, tears again. And, I added gently, you also need to forgive yourself enough to keep showing up. Rachel whispered, I don't know how. Start with a verse, I said softly, not as a magic spell, as a reminder of the kind of speech God calls us to. Rachel nodded. In Ephesians, I said, it says, let no unwholesome talk come out of your mouths, but only what is helpful for building others up. Rachel closed her eyes. That verse is not meant to crush you, I continued gently. It's meant to guide you. Your words have power. They can wound or they can build. And when you mess up, grace doesn't excuse. Grace empowers change. Rachel nodded, tears slipping. Let's pray, I said. Rachel's hands unclenched slightly. The lunchbox shifted on her lap, lighter. God, I said, give Rachel a calm mind and a gentle spirit. Heal the old wound that tells her she must be perfect to be loved. Give her wisdom in the moment and strength to pause, lower her voice, set clear limits, and repair quickly. Protect Ben and Sophie from shame. Build safety in their home. And help this family break the cycle and come back to each other with love. In Jesus' name, amen. Rachel exhaled like a knot had loosened inside her chest. She stood slowly. At the door, she looked down at the lunchbox and then back at me. I'm going to put a note in it, she said, voice shaky but determined. I nodded. And every time you touch it, remember, you are not repeating. You are repairing, Rachel whispered one last time, like a vow. Repair, don't repeat. She left. And if you're listening and this story hit home, I want to hear from you. Team A says kids need stricter discipline and consequences. Team B says kids need safety and gentle firmness. Which team are you? And what is one sentence you would say to a child after you mess up?